Hey guys, it's Jess. Welcome back to Roots and Refuge Farm. It is a beautiful October morning, and today we are going to be doing a little bit of a project in the greenhouse. Last year, around this time, I actually showed you something I'd learned back in my days of living in town, and that was how to grow salad greens in a soil bag using like a storage container's little greenhouse over the top. And a year later, that actually stands as the most popular video I've ever published on my channel. It has over 1 million views, and I have received so many photos and testimonials of you guys telling me how wonderfully that worked for you. Now, I actually shared kind of like the follow-up of that project through vlogs and garden tours and stuff like that, but I never did like a designated video of answering questions and going in deeper to the idea of growing in soil bags. I don't actually have a lot of need like through the spring and the summer to do that because we do have a really large garden with lots of raised bed growing space. However, I am getting ready as we're going into the winter. I'm actually starting some salad greens again in soil bags, and I'm going to be putting it in my greenhouse, and I thought I would take this opportunity to talk to you guys about the benefit of doing this because I think it's a really great option if you're wanting to grow food but you might not be in a position to have a large garden and going yet. So let's get all our stuff and head into the greenhouse and get started on this. One thing I've definitely learned in the couple years that I've been sharing our experience in growing food here on YouTube is that there are a ton of you that really want to grow food, many of which feel stuck by your current circumstances and feel like you can't obtain this dream of growing food because you live in town or you're a single parent or you don't have a lot of finances to, throw at projects. And so for me, like being able to help you guys find solutions to remedy those things, to give you some freedom to be able to grow food, even if it's not a lot, that's very important to me. Very, very much so. Because I believe that we will change the world one small effort at a time. It's not just the people who have the ability to grow a lot of food that are going to make a difference. It's all of the people who will make little steps in the right direction. That's really where change happens. So things like this, like growing food in soil bags, this is a great resource. This is a great resource if you don't have a lot of space, if you don't have a lot of money, if you don't have the physical capacity to build raised garden beds or haul in a bunch of mulch. It takes a lot of muscle and just a lot of ability. So this is the kind of thing that just about anybody can do. So I bought these bags of soil. I've got a couple bags here for $8.99 each. So basically what we're gonna do is cut the tops off just like this. I actually forgot I need to punch holes in the bottom of this, but it's sitting on this net thing, so I'm just gonna stick like a screwdriver or something up through the net and poke a few holes on the bottom. You want to do that before you cut the top off. I'll do it before on the other one, because if you were laying this on the ground and you weren't able to access the bottom, that would have been a bad mistake. And just like that, I now have a little container garden. It's really that simple. So as you can tell, this has the capacity to be like a total game changer if you're in a place where you can't do anything else. Right here, I've got a $9 garden that's offering me a couple square feet of growing space with no additional work. Now, I love growing salad greens in this method. The reason is, even though I have tons of raised bed space out there, the nature of salad greens is that you're picking really young leaves and you're broadcasting them in a really wide area. It's difficult to kind of mulch around these plants without choking them out, and so you end up dealing with weeds more. So I like the kind of sterile growing medium that bags of soil offer. There's not going to be any weeds in this, and I can keep it protected and covered. The other thing is salad green seeds are tiny, lettuce seeds are really, really little, kale, most of the stuff that's going in here, little seeds. So if I go plant them outside and then we get like a random 10-minute rain shower, they can get washed all over the place. They're not where I put them. A lot of times they get buried too deep and covered up by the rain. And so with soil bags, I can put them in a place that's covered, or I can use like a tub or something to cover them to control the amount of water that they're getting, and that way my soil doesn't get washed out, that way my seeds don't get washed away, and it just gives me a little more control. But salad greens are not the only thing that you can grow in soil bags. Basically, you've got about 3 or 4 inches of soil here, which means that you can grow just about anything that doesn't have a really long taproot. I mean, this would be a good way. You could grow beets this way. You could grow turnips. I think they probably wouldn't be able to get super huge, but you could definitely harvest the greens off of them. You could grow any sort of lettuces or kales. I don't know much about like cabbage or broccoli. I imagine you could. I haven't tried. But just growing a handful of small root vegetables and then leafy things, kales and lettuces and baby greens, that really opens up a lot of opportunity for somebody to garden. Since sharing my original video of salad greens, I've been sent so many pictures and videos and had people show me when I meet them in person. They'll pull their phone out and show me. I saw one person who had literally taken about 30 soil bags and lined them out and cut the tops out of them, planted an entire garden in soil bags because she wasn't able to maneuver filling up beds and all of that, but she could lift the bags. I was just completely amazed at how many people took this idea and ran with it, or had already been doing it beforehand. So right now I'm just taking these lettuce greens and I am just broadcasting them all the way across the top of this open bag. Since I'm going to be picking these really young, essentially that's thinning, I don't mind that they're really close together. And actually these bags of soil were really wet because when I bought them at the store they'd been sitting outside. So I don't even have to water this today because there's enough moisture in the soil that it doesn't need me to water it. I'm just brushing my hand along the top here. Now, if I were going to plant something like radishes in here, I would just space them out a couple of inches, give the roots enough space to kind of grow. But I could totally be growing radishes. I could totally grow a bag full of beets, which is a really great thing to grow this time of year. Now, if you live in an area that stays pretty mild, like I do here in Arkansas, you can grow a lot of things with just a little bit of cover. Things like root vegetables like beets and carrots and radishes and turnips, those things don't mind being frosted on. They don't mind a mild freeze down to like maybe like the mid-20s. They're not going to fuss at all, and they can actually go colder than that. It just really kind of depends on some other factors. So if you have the capacity to give some soil bags like this some coverage, like if you have a little greenhouse or a container, a storage container, like those storage containers, just view those like you would like frost fabric. It's not going to heat the soil a whole lot. It's just going to kind of protect it from the elements. You can kind of use a rule of thumb that those storage containers are going to add, you know, maybe like 10 or 15 degrees to your lows at night. It'll keep it that much warmer. And of course keep the wind and the weather off of them. See, you can actually still kind of see the seeds on here. Lettuce seeds are so tiny that you don't really have to get them really covered up. Lots of lettuce seeds actually need light for germination, so this should be just fine. Now let's come over here to this one. Now this one I'm going to remember to poke the holes in before I tear the top off, so I'm just going to put a few holes in the bottom. I use this dibber. You can use anything that's sharp. Turn it over. And then cut a window in the top. Here in this one I'm going to do this rocky top lettuce mix. When I start this, I just want to go by like 8 bags so I can just plant all the things, but this should actually be sufficient for us because I do already have so many green things growing out in the garden that are going to be harvested at a larger state. One thing that I think is really valuable about doing little projects like this is it gives you a tremendous amount of knowledge about how things grow. Gardening experience is one of the most valuable things that you harvest during gardening, period. I almost said during the early stages of gardening, but honestly, I know people who have been gardeners for 50 years that talk about how new circumstances teach them new lessons all the time. And I completely agree that that's true. The thing is you can read a lot of books, but the first time that you go to lay out your garden, you may be a little stumped on spacing if you've never seen a full-grown head of cabbage or a full-grown tomato plant. So just getting started, no matter where you are, holds a lot of value. And with this little project of growing in a soil bag, I think it really opens up the ability to experience things hands-on, and it's not a huge investment. You can orient this near your house. Keep in mind what kind of rainfall it's going to get. I do like putting that tub over it to get to control rainfall a little bit. That way, if you live in an area that gets a lot of rain, it's not going to just like wash your bag out. Now, one of the questions we got a lot after posting this original project was, can I grow this inside? Can I do this project inside? And that was in reference to the soil bag with the cover. You wouldn't really need to. I mean, like, the cover is basically, like I said, like frost fabric. It's basically just a little bit of protection against the cold and maybe a little bit of exemplifying and holding in the heat with the sun. If you wanted to grow inside simply, like something equivalent to this, I don't think that I would just cut a soil bag open in the house. You would need a light. You would need some sort of grow light, and they're relatively affordable. You can get a pretty decent grow light on Amazon in the like $20 to $30 range. And if you hung a grow light right over this, you could. The only concern that I would have over that would be gnats, because sometimes in bagged soil you end up with gnats, and when it's outside like this, it doesn't really matter so much, but you don't want to bring bugs in your house. Another option for growing, you know, in the house would be getting some trays like this. These are those Bootstrap Farmer trays that I use so much, and these have been in use around here for a little over a year. We've used them for a lot of different things. And you could also put soil in that and, you know, do salad greens with a little bit of a grow light on it. That would be a really simple project to do inside the house. Even for people who live in warmer weather that might not want to have a project going outside where it's cold, you could definitely do that. But I think the bottom line to whether you ended up doing something in trays, inside with a grow light, or bags outside in a greenhouse or with a tub greenhouse, is that these are little ways to grow food all year long. So I really just wanted to remind you guys today, I was planning on going ahead and putting this together because I wanted to grow greens in the greenhouse. And I wanted to remind you guys about this option. As many of you are easing into the winter months and you might have already kind of written off gardening for the rest of the year, don't, because you can kind of look at your area, and if you are in a place that it's really cold, I encourage you to maybe grow a little something in the house. Grow some greens under a grow light, or grow some microgreens on the counter, or grow some sprouts on a windowsill. I really think that there's a lot of value in continuing this process through the year. For those of you who are down under, I know we have a lot of viewers down in Australia. You guys are heading into your spring. If you're in a place that you think, oh, I can't get my garden together this year, I'm just not going to be able to do anything, don't forget you can grow in soil bags. A lot of times people say, hey, do you think that, you know, with these soil bags, do you think that I could grow XYZ? Do you think that I could try this? Do you think that this would work? And, you know, a lot of times I can kind of give my assumption of like, I don't really think that would work for this reason. But the bottom line is with a lot of things is just try it. As far as growing in soil bags, mostly I've grown lettuces, I've grown some other leafy things. Before this last year, my mom grew cucumbers out of a soil bag. You know, I've talked to a few people that have grown a handful of different things. That have grown squash. I've talked to somebody that grew squash. I've seen where people grew tomatoes, smaller varieties of tomatoes. But I can only tell you what I've done, but I do encourage you to try. If this is the option that you have, exhaust it. truly. Like, if you feel contained to the circumstances that you're in and you feel like, well, I can't grow food because of these circumstances, but I see this one little opportunity, but will this even work? Try it. Push it to the limits. Figure out what you can grow in the circumstances you have, and it's grown in soil bags. Plant whatever you can think of in those and just see what happens. The worst that's going to happen is that it's going to fail. You know, and even with this soil, I've been growing it. I'll grow one season in it, and then I usually dump the bag into my bed, into my garden bed. It's not my bed, so that would be weird. But like, I usually just go ahead and throw the soil in there, and so I'm starting with new bags. That way I know that they're not exhausted. But the worst thing that's going to happen is, you know, you'll amend it and try again. We're not talking about a huge loss. We don't need to be afraid to fail in gardening. You're going to fail until you die whenever you're a gardener, but you're also going to learn until you die. And so try it, give it a try. The worst that can happen is that it doesn't work out great, but then you'll know and you will have harvested a lesson. Wisdom is a really great crop to go after in the garden too. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you feel inspired and encouraged. Please, wherever you are, grow something. I know you'll be so glad you did if you just start. I bless you. Until next time.